Hello, you are listening to the Musicking Community, the podcast that explores and celebrates the role of music and musicians in the context of local communities wherever they might be. I'm Heather Niemi Savage, composer, collaborative pianist, music teacher, and your host of the Musicking Community. Thanks for listening. New Wave opera is indeed making waves and taking steps that will change the face of opera. In this episode, Lisa, Neher, and I continue our conversation about how New Wave opera is challenging gender stereotypes and working to address the disparity between the number of treble voices and the roles available to them. Along the way, we also discuss comedy, political music, and what it takes to start a new ensemble. You are listening to episode number 15. If you were to give advice to somebody who wanted to start an ensemble, not necessarily the exact same thing that you're doing, but
Sure.
maybe a variation or maybe something that's completely instrumental or whatever, what kinds of advice would you give to musicians who want to start an ensemble?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think, spending a little time getting clear on like the things that you're really excited about. And I think right now there's so much energy, maybe that's directing people to repertoire or to topics. Like I know here in Portland, there's a lot of energy behind, for example, social justice music programming. So like if that lights your fire, great. But also if something else lights your fire, if you want to play music that's, all about goofy animals, or if you want to do music that's about joy, or if you want to do, music from the Middle Ages. I mean, I think I would say obviously you want to think about equity in your programming no matter what, but I think there's many ways to do that, and you want to start with what lights you on fire and try not to get pulled towards something like thinking that if you just do the trendy thing, not that I'm not saying those things are all trendy, but the thing that's like seems of the moment, that you should do that instead of what's really calling to you. Like if you believe in it, if you want to do it, there will be an audience for it, I think.
Yeah.
And you're going to spend a lot of time on it. I mean, I had this moment several years ago during the time of the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, and there was quite a bit of energy, especially here in the West Coast, but also nationally, around composers and women telling their Me Too stories. And even many calls that I saw as a composer, maybe you saw them as well, to set the testimony from the Brett Kavanaugh hearings.
Wow.
And
I did not see those.
Okay, there were quite a few that I was encountering. And for people who are called to that, please do that. I remember at that moment, I was in the middle of writing a bassoon duet about a jellyfish. And I had this kind of feeling as an artist, like, does anybody want my pretty jellyfish music? Like, is this relevant? Does this matter? Am I allowed to write music about the animals that I like? This one's not even that endangered. Do you know what I mean? Like, I really felt the pressures of like, music should be political, capital P.
Right.
And the truth was, no one was really telling me that. It was just some people were feeling the need to express their reaction to the moment that way, which is great and which is what they should do. And since I didn't at the time have something that I felt I could say authentically, I should not speak on that. I should listen.
Yeah. Right? That need to be authentic. I think you're nailing that right on the head. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the truth is, what I started to hear from people, because here I was like worried that no one would want my jellyfish music, was that in addition to going to these concerts and really engaging with this difficult stuff, that there were also a need for some beauty, some peace, some hope, some relief. And so the truth was, once I kind of lived through that little tight moment of self-doubt, I realized, no, the world is so much bigger. People do want a variety of art.
Right.
So that's the first thing. Long story is that's the first thing I would say is really spend a bit of time thinking about what you really want to do. And then, it's very hard to do things completely by yourself. So I would also really spend some time thinking and maybe even talking, um, just not even like pitching, join me in this endeavor, but more just talking conceptually and at a very heart to heart level with your close colleagues about what are they longing to do? What
Right.
do they want to create? Where is their energy? Where are their limitations?
Mm.
um I had a really lovely series of conversations with a colleague several years ago, and we were kind of throwing around the idea of starting more of a like instrumental and vocal chamber ensemble of
Mm-hmm.
new music. And we had many good conversations, and we were interested in quite a bit of the same things. But as we got deeper into that conversation, what it became clear was that my colleague was more interested in curating concerts and bringing artists from outside of Portland here,
Got
artists
it.
that they were passionate about but felt like they weren't being heard or that style of music wasn't being represented.
Mm-hmm.
And I was more interested in having an ensemble that I wanted to build a relationship as a performer and composer with and perform regularly with, like a string quartet gets to do. And
Right.
so we ultimately decided not to start the group. And I consider that a success because
Right.
we were able to have those deep conversations about what was lighting us on fire and realize that we were close, but not quite, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Just
would have
you
those
had different
conversations.
visions that
Yeah.
weren't exactly compatible enough to make it sustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
It's good to
And
find that out.
And then I've just talked about sort of the slow roll part. So then I'm going to say the other side. Spend a bit of time thinking about this and a bit of time researching it. I don't know, 3 months, 6 months, maybe, and then just go do it.
Yeah.
Then just go do one event. Test
Right.
drive with one event. You can call yourself something. And if it doesn't work out, you can change it later. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
you may as well brand yourself as something, because then if it works out and you do the next thing, it's the
Right.
second thing, you know? Give yourself a name and make a thing happen, and try to make it happen in a way that gives everyone as much return on that investment as you can without
Mm-hmm.
putting it all on your credit card, because that doesn't work you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
and be really honest with that. Like, if you really don't have the budget to pay people a ton yet, then tell them, I would like you to join with me on this thing. I'll be honest, we're on a shoestring right now, but I'm hoping it will grow, and this is what I can offer. And if they're in, great. And if they're not, that's okay, because you can't be the person who bleeds yourself dry over
Right.
this.
Right.
You have to find people who believe in it enough where they're going to help you hustle up that money together, or at least they're going to accept that we're starting a new thing and we may not be paid as much as our union gig yet. You
Right.
know? Yeah.
Right.
And then you grow together and you work hard together to make that happen and to make it more and more financially strong together.
Right. Right. Yes. So that is awesome. Thank you. It sounds like
Yeah.
you're going through this process right now with the New Wave Opera, and you've done your summer, kind of your test drive concert, I guess, over
Yeah.
the summer. And you said that it was very well attended. And so tell me a little bit about, what kind of response did you get from the audience?
Yeah. We had such a lovely response from the audience. People were telling us about their favorite pieces. One of the favorite pieces that I kept hearing people talk about was a duet from Meow and Forever, Jody Goebel and Basil
Mhm.
Considine's opera that we're going to do in the spring. And it's this bored cat duet. And it's very silly. These two cats are talking about how bored they are, and how their life revolves around the food bowl. Oh no, the food bowl is full. Oh no, the food bowl is empty. And
Right.
I just think if anybody's had pets, they know these goofy, sweet conversations that we have with our animals. And it's such a joyful part of our day to interact
Yeah.
with the animals in our lives. And it's so fun to hear that personified and sort of vocalized in language. So people were really enthusiastic about that piece. people said they were surprised. They said they were entertained. Um, there was a short set of kind of lighthearted, silly songs that we did of mine called Snapshots. And people said the kids in the audience really perked up at that one.
Mm.
They're very light and quick and sort of witty. And so that was one that caught the attention. I'll share one of the most heartwarming things I heard was someone told us that we were going to change the face of opera.
Ooh.
And that I mean, from his lips to the ears of the fates, that's what we're here about.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I think one of the things that we have put this kind of classical music on a pedestal and and kind of I think wrongly associated classical music with something serious all the time. And even in the past, the classical music was not all serious. I mean, I can
No.
imagine some of maybe not cats specifically, but songs about animals, that was part of the gig. And even in instrumental music, sometimes we forget that there were these little pieces called divertimenti, that were just short little fun things with no other purpose than to just be fun and, musically witty,
Yes.
So I think I love that. I love that it continues in that tradition while being new. So
Yes.
you can get both sides. You can get the serious stuff that people are grappling with that are current to the day, but you also can be just fun and lighthearted.
Yeah, and I think too, like I always think about comedy is actually harder as an actor. Um, it takes timing, it takes a lot of honesty to do comedy because
Mm.
if you as the actor are playing it, a lot of times if you as the actor are playing it as if it's a joke, it doesn't work.
Okay.
Like the thing that's funny is when you are the cat who really is, oh no, the bowl's empty. Like you really are dismayed. You know what I mean? That's what's funny. But like, haha, it's empty, yucca yucca. Like wink wink at the audience is rarely funny. So, I think as an actor and a director, like I think comedy is harder. And also as a composer, I think comedy is harder. What makes it funny? What's the timing? What's just the right amount of, you know, um the gesture or the exaggeration or the sort of mismatch of maybe the text with the music, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
So Basil and I are working on right now an opera called Kitchen Wedding Murder, um, where it's kind of part whodunit, murder mystery, part dramatic wedding rom-com, and a little bit of cooking pulled in. And one of the scenes that has all this dialogue of like different dysfunctional family coming in and out, and all these jokes about kind of in the libretto that Basil's written about just kind of the foibles of family and the awkwardness. And I was really trying to think about like what I could do with this musically. And one of the things I ended up doing was quoting some of the Four Seasons, because that's
Mm-hmm.
often played, as a prelude anyway to a wedding. So it
Right.
almost is as if like there's this elegant music going on in the instrumentals, and then the vocal lines are kind of weaving in it. And my hope is, and I think it'll work, is it creates this juxtaposition of the elegance that we associate with a
Right.
wedding and all this, with all of this, like the uncle's already drunk
Yep.
and the ex is here and all
No.
of this stuff happening. So comedy, I'm hoping it works. I think it will. Comedy's hard. And
Yeah.
comedy can also tell us something real.
Yeah.
I mean, that's real. Going to a family event and loving your family enough to be there, but also kind of cringing through it. Like, who's to say that we don't deserve to have art that lets us feel seen in those experiences too?
Right.
Even though, yeah, the world's not about to be bombed like in a James Bond movie or something. It's not like the stakes are as big as a sci-fi drama or the Marvel universe, or whatever. But it can still be really meaningful.
Right. Right. Yeah. I love that. I love that. So once you get through this year, do you have ideas or looking ahead, or are you looking past this first season to what you hope to do with New Wave Opera and how you hope to have it grow?
Absolutely. So we have, in partnership with University of Portland, in partnership with them, a liberal arts university, we have applied for a Challenge America grant, which if we receive will allow us to do a collaboration with their students to give them mentorship and to put on opera together, where they have students that perform along with the professionals and get career and artistry mentorship. So we have that. We have some other grants that were in the works. We have a form on our website where composers and librettists can send us music for consideration. And so we are getting wonderful pieces sent to us that we are sort of looking at and thinking about what would go together. One of the things that we're really passionate about is casting treble voices, so that's sopranos and mezzos, and offering more opportunities to those voices, because in traditional opera, and even, I'm sad to say, in some newer works that are getting quite acclaimed, there is a vast disproportion between the roles for basses and tenors.
Yeah, I read that on your website,
yeah.
and I guess, I mean, I'm familiar with opera, but not that familiar with opera, and I was really surprised by that.
Yeah.
So what is the what do you attribute that to? That
sexism.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I guess though, like even with the stories, how does that get so lopsided? I mean, I guess I guess that's the only explanation.
I do think it's sexism. And I think even now, if you look at television, if you look at movies, if you look at, things on Netflix, whether if you look at musicals, I mean, most of our media, the casting is not even half and half. Female presenting characters, or gender diverse characters, women and non-binary and gender fluid folks versus heterosexual men. I mean, think about a classic action movie, one lady, right?
Yeah.
All the guys. I love Star Trek. Star Trek still usually 4-3.
Yeah.
And what do we think about a television show or a movie with a mostly female cast? We think it's for women.
Right.
Sex and the City. Well, that's a girls' show.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And then people give all this accolade. Well, Harry Potter, right? There was Hermione and she was smarter than everyone. Okay, that's one. And also, she was also portrayed as hysterical, as nerdy, as ugly, as buck-toothed in the books. I mean, so these pop culture things that we have, they continue to, we talk about the male gaze in literature. They continue to reflect the male gaze, the heterosexual male gaze, which, by the way, is bad for guys too. I have a really dear friend who's a baritone, and he's like, I would really love to play someone other than a sleazy old guy in an opera. But that's what he does. Stereotypically, the old guy is the sleazy, but the baritone is the sleaze. And that's not very interesting either, Yeah. The other thing I think is, to the extent, and this is a soapbox of mine, to the extent that we continue to say that our operas will be based on the great American novel, or that will be based on a movie, The Shining, the opera, to the extent that we adapt existing things, we will be perpetuating and fighting against the last generation's sexism, right? Unless you're willing to gender flip The Shining, unless you're willing to take, The Great Gatsby and change all the characters. Do you know what I mean? Which people won't. Like, people, you change the gender of one character and people have a fit, right? Or they say it won't work anymore. And
Yeah.
so we need more original stories. We need more
Right.
new stories. We need more. I love Little Women as much as anyone else, but we have all, as sopranos and mezzos, breathed life and as much feminism as possible into women from 50 to 100 to 200 years ago, so many times, so
Right.
many times. I just don't need to do it anymore.
Right.
You know, I don't need to do it
Yeah.
anymore. We have that. That's great. Go read that book, but we don't need to recreate it. You know, we need news stories. We need stories like, you know, like the ones we're telling. You know, we need Meow and Forever, and we need Pepito, and we need Serial Killers in the City. You know, as a cast
Yeah.
of four treble voices, a tenor and a baritone. That's the kind of proportions I want to see.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of proportions that represent the talent. You know, we have so much talent.
Yeah.
Not even talent. That's kind of that's almost undermining the amount of like dedication and years of craft. We have so much training out
Yes.
there. We have so many deeply trained sopranos, right?
Right.
2 or 3 or 4 in any given city for every one deeply trained tenor. And that one deeply trained tenor is getting all the gigs anyway. You're not going to get him.
Yeah.
He's busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so you can have really, really great singing and really, really great performing if you choose shows that allow you to use this untapped resource.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that's amazing. I really appreciate you sharing your insights on all of that. And that's something that I just haven't I'm not geared that way to notice those kinds of things. So this all like you're revealing these things to me, and I'm like, I feel kind of dumb that I didn't notice this
No.
stuff. But I just don't think about it. It's kind of a funny thing that even when we're watching a movie, I'm so thankful for the, ability to pause because I'm like, all right, which character is this now? Because I will like keep lose track in between scenes, like who is this, did they change their hair?
Yeah.
um so that is something that got lost on me, so I really appreciate you sharing all of that. And so when you have your form on your website for composers and librettists, do you have any guidelines of what you're looking for people to send things to you?
Absolutely. So we're happy to review, whatever folks would like to send us. However, our company has a resident mezzo and a resident soprano, so that's a good place to start. Right now, because of being a new company with a modest budget, we are able to program things with piano/keyboard accompaniment. So if you have a piece that has a larger ensemble, sending us the piano vocal version and being sure that your piano vocal version is truly performable, because there are these ways that our software will make you a reduction automatically, and sometimes that assumes that a pianist has way too many fingers. So really truly, and it is something that I mentioned to a lot of my students as well when they're making these reductions, quote unquote, is that your piece will be performed more often in reduction than in full score. And so make sure that reduction is really good. We are favoring works that feature treble voices, which is sopranos, mezzos, or that have a larger proportion of that compared to tenors and baritones. So I would just encourage people to consider that. And then send us your stuff.
Yeah. Are you finding in schools the same, in music schools, the same kinds of proportions of women's voices to men's voices as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Almost the vast majority of classical singers being trained today are sopranos. Second is mezzos, then baritones, then tenors, then true double basses, or bass baritones. I'm sorry, not double bass is the string. Composer brain. And actually, if anyone's curious about this, you can Google things like take a really prestigious young artist program. like Glimmer Glass Opera or something, and Google what were the numbers of singers of what voice type that auditioned, and you will see this proportion reflecting.
Okay.
Often 4, 6, or 8 sopranos to 1 tenor.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So
yep.
That just tells you, and continuing, most of those programs are accepting, well, if they're casting traditional operas, they actually need more tenor and baritones to do leading roles.
Right.
Right? Because there's more of those in each show. Or a classic like young artist training program, such as like a Seattle Opera or Portland Opera, typically they have 4 or 5 slots and they try to do, 1 soprano, 1 mezzo, 1 tenor, 1 baritone. And so you can just see how your odds of getting chosen for a high level career development opportunity massively increase the lower your voice is.
Right.
That's not something any of us get to decide, right? And it's not really fair. And look, I know lots of lovely baritones and tenors who are deserving of these opportunities, but they're not necessarily more deserving than the sopranos or mezzos, right?
Right. Yeah. So, they're just the amount of opportunities has to rise to meet the wealth of talent and training that is ready to accept them.
Yeah, we really should be offering 2 or 3 times as many opportunities for treble voices as for bass voices.
Right. Right.
We should be.
Yeah, this is all so enlightening. I am getting so much out of this.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we're going to wrap that up unless there's anything else that I missed.
No, that's so great.
Share. Okay. Yeah, thank you again. I got out a lot of out of it. I hope our listeners are getting a lot out of this. So much, all the way from new projects in opera to some of the complicated issues around gender that are existing in opera and the need for new music in opera. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your talent. I'm so excited to hear what new wave operas, the new productions you're doing are going to sound like. So I wish I could be there.
Well, keep an eye out as we get some of our recordings available. We'll be sharing excerpts on our YouTube channel.
Right.
And thank you for having me. We're just so excited and we appreciate the time.
Yeah, and I will link to all of that I'll link to your website, to New Wave Opera's website, and you said you're gonna have a YouTube channel. I can link to the YouTube channel in the show notes.
Yay!
So if you are listening or watching on YouTube, check the show notes for all that information. And thanks again, Lisa, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Night of the Living Opera will be presented on Monday, October 21st and Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024 at Raven's Manor Haunted Bar in Portland, Oregon. To get more information and to check out other events, visit newwaveopera.org. Links are in the show notes. Thanks for listening. You have been listening to the Musicking Community Podcast with host Heather Nimi Savage. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/the Musicking Community Podcast, where you can get early access to ad-free episodes, video episodes, transcripts, merch, and other benefits for our supporters. You can follow us there for free or become a supporter for as little as $3 a month. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.